So when we're talking about lat pull downs or overhead press, which are, in my mind, those are kind of sister movements. And when we try to train opposition workouts where we pair two movements that look the same but the resistance is going in opposite directions, it would be like overhead press and lat pull down. It would be like if I'm doing a chest press, it's going to be that mid to high row, right? So that's one style that we could be working with it. And the thing about both of these exercises is that in the 80s, and where a lot of like the books that you have that are a little bit more old school, a lot of times they're like, you can target the lats better, you can target the medial deltoid much better if you go behind the head. But what happens when you do that is that you have the shape of your scapula and the different bones that are in here, and you have the supraspinatus, which is the muscle that kind of runs over the top of your humerus, right? And when you go behind the neck, the tendon for that muscle, as well as some of your external rotators, will tend to grind against the scapula and get worn down. And what's going to happen as a result of that is that you're actually going to develop tendonitis in your shoulder, which is going to lead to a condition known as frozen shoulder, where it's painful for you to move your shoulder anywhere outside of anatomical position. It's very painful, sometimes requires surgery to correct. It can be dealt with or remediated with active release therapy and Graston technique and whatnot and stretching, but it's going to be a long, painful process and it's really not worth it. So what we're going to be trying to do when we're doing a lat pull down is that we want to always come to the front of our body. And one of the things that I was trying to make clear is that a band always pulls, or a cable always pulls in the direction the band is going. That is the straight direction of our resistance, right? And so to illustrate that, if the band is pulling this way, obviously it's pulling my hand this way. If I'm pulling this way, right, it's pulling this hand this way. So the band is always pulling in the direction that the band is pointing. And why this is important is I believe that we had a little bit of a question when it came to the lat pull down about the position of our body if we're facing a cable machine, is that we want to be tilted back so that the point of the cable is a little bit in front of my shoulder. What this does is it pulls my shoulder a little bit into this internal rotation and it pulls you to the healthy direction. If I am, say, facing away from the machine, or I'm facing the machine and I'm really close to it, and the pulley, the wheel of the pulley is behind my shoulder, it's going to be pulling me into that dangerous range of motion. Does that make sense? So it's pulling me into this kind of extreme external rotation with my hand behind my ears and whatnot, and it's going to be leading me into destroying that tendinous tissue in the shoulder. So it's really important that wherever the pulley is, or the anchor point for this is, or if I'm doing a pull down, that I'm always coming down to my collarbone and the resistance is always pulling a little bit to the front so that I don't get pulled into that bad range of motion. You don't even really want it to be straight up and down. You actually want it to be a little bit to your anterior side. So the wider, if you have the cable machine that has the arms, which I believe your current gym does not, the wider the arms are placed, or the wider your points are, or whatever you're working with, right, the more it targets your lats versus your biceps, right? But it also limits the range of motion that my shoulder is actually going to be traveling in. So it's better to be somewhere in the middle here. Right? If we go too narrow, then it's going to be all bicep, and my arms are almost always going to be pulled to the front. I'm always going to round my shoulders front. So I want to have kind of that 45 degrees. If you want to target more lat, then you can go wider, but just know that you're not going to be getting as much range of motion here, and we only get strong in the range of motion that we train. So however you have those positions, or if you're using a bar for your lat pull down, and the reason why we're doing the lat pull down is because from what we saw, for when the pull-up bar you have at home is difficult to use, but also that you can only get so many pull-ups right now. We want to use the lat pull down to actually get us up to the point where we can actually do our pull-ups regularly. So again, we're going to be coming down as whatever pace that we want to be going in, and then we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't really have much of a progression to give to you. It's really hard to add stability to this kind of movement, other than, you could start using Olympic rings so that you're actually using suspension transfer of a pull-up. You can use, if you have a ring set up, you can set it up to a height where you can start in a lunge position and use your legs for extra help getting up. You can use an assisted pull-up machine for hitting this exactly the same way. Your body doesn't really know a whole much of a difference between those modalities that much. The difference is that if you're using rings, obviously the rings can move, whereas if you're holding onto a bar, you're going to be in a set path of travel. Anything else that I want to add into that? Oh, you can also use, if your gym has it and you have a pull-up bar but you don't have an assisted, or if you want to have more of a graded resistance, there are thick, wide, flat bands that you can use. You can just tie it into the bar and put your knee into it, and that will provide help back up. It's going to be less help as you get up because the elastic bands get less tension the closer to the neutral position they're in, right? So here, when our lats are stretched, just like we talked about in the chest press video, that the muscle fibers are in an elongated position, so they're going to be weaker down here than they are up here. So that band helping you in that weaker range of motion will actually help you, assist you where you need the help the most. And that's what I've got for you for this one.